Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Winnipeg Jets franchise mode here in NHL 24. So, in last episode, we simulated the second half of the season. We also did make a small trade acquiring a depth forward that basically will give us a little bit better defense in our bottom six if we are to put him in the lineup in the playoffs. So that was a nice little addition. And we managed to finish the season off 48, 26, and 8, so not too bad of a record. And obviously, there was a kind of a little bit of an interesting thing at the halfway point of the season. We were kind of like mid-table in a lot of categories, like we weren't looking too good. Well, a lot of our player stats, or not player stats necessarily, our team stats, have jumped up considerably in that last half of the season, which is great. As you can see, we finished as the 5th best team in the entire NHL, which is a pretty good spot to finish if you want to have maybe a good playoff run. Then in terms of offense, we were still one of the best offensive teams, so we improved drastically there. Our goals against per game, we were also one of the best defensive teams, so a lot of things improved. Our power play percentage also went up to 25.3%, which was second best in the NHL. The one thing that really struggled still for us, I would say, a little bit is our penalty kill, which was below mid-table still, but everything else improved quite a bit. So yeah, I was really impressed with how our second half of the season ended up, and I'm hoping that obviously that continues into the playoffs. We also had some pretty good player stats because Ludvig Ekholm finished with 112 points this year, which is by far the best of his career. We also had Marchand 87 points and 51 goals in his third season. And then veterans like Bickle did really well in the season, over point per game. Bulbrook was almost point per game. You had guys like Blunden pick up 41 goals. Vandermeer had 72 points. So everybody on the team did their job pretty nicely, I would say. And it was definitely a good year for this team. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see if we can continue that into the postseason or not. But I think it relies on the fact that we have to run on our goaltending, which hasn't been good so far in the playoffs the last few years. Ivan Kalinин's been a little bit of a mixed bag. Actually, he has been pretty good the last 2 years, I guess. It's just been more our defensive play in front of him. Maybe that's been a little bit weird. And our defensive core definitely is a little bit different than it has been in prior playoffs. We don't have as much experience on the back end as we once did. So it is a little bit of a risky defensive core. But I think we could obviously win games in the playoffs too. Because if we head on over to our defensive core things, you see we have Vandermeer, we have Kress, who we brought back on a one-year deal. There's a chance he could be headed to free agency in the offseason. We still have Backer, who's been here for a while. DePenta's been here for only a couple years at this point. And you have Gustafson and Fawcett, who are young guys in the defensive core, as well as Kopecky. So a good amount of youth in the defensive core as well. And then in terms of our offensive core, you can see that we're still pretty damn balanced throughout the entire lineup. Obviously, Aidan Irving's the only guy in the 70 overall range just because of the fact that he's been dropping off a lot. I'm hoping this isn't the last season for him, but at the same time, it would save us a lot of cap space. I don't even know if we could do another full season with the time we have left pretty much after this. I probably will still try to get some more simulated done before NHL 25 drops. But yeah, you can see Aidan had his worst season with 38 points, but 22 goals again. So he's never been below a 20 goal score, which is awesome. And he was good last year in the playoffs despite his overall declining. So I'm hoping that maybe he could be a good player for us still in the playoffs. Now, somebody on the bottom six isn't playing good defensively. Like I said, we brought in a good defensive forward, that being Caleb McNeely, who we brought in from the New York Rangers. He was actually playing pretty good offensively the last few years in the NHL, but you can see his defensive stats. He's got good awareness, good face-offs, shot blocking's okay, and stick checking as well. So I think he would definitely help out our bottom six if for some reason one of these guys is not playing good enough defensively. So obviously we can make some adjustments if we need to. But anyways, before we get into this first round matchup with the Minnesota Wild, let's get into the one and only comment we got in last episode. And I'll show you guys what Minnesota looks like again, just in case you forgot. And then we'll get into this first round matchup. So that comment is from Sano Otaku, who says, "Sorry I wasn't clear before. I meant rework the bottom six among the players you already have. Move a third liner to the fourth line. Give one of your scratch forwards an opportunity. The trade was still really solid though." So when he said rework the bottom six, he didn't mean actually trading players and stuff like that. But at least we kind of just traded a depth forward for a depth forward because we gave up young prospect Cutler to the Rangers just because we didn't really need him. And he was more of an offensively minded player anyways. So if he was put in the bottom six, I feel like he would be more of a liability. So McNeely definitely helps us out a lot more defensively going into the playoffs if we are to put him in the lineup. So he has not played a game yet with this team, but he might end up playing some games, really depending on how this Minnesota Wild team does against us, because Minnesota is an interesting team. They only finished a little bit above us in the standings. They have some experience in the playoffs, but not too much. I think they won the Stanley Cup last year, but I'm not too sure on how much these guys were actually with that cup-winning team. So their first line you can see is Lyon, Blum, and Bolt, solid top line. Second line has some pretty good balance to it, Martone, Reed, and Panaye. A third line that is actually better than ours because they have Plekhanov on it, and they also have Whitney and Eddie. And then their fourth line is pretty similar to ours, I would say. They have Pellick, they have Cox, and they have Almond. So their offensive core is pretty damn good. It doesn't have one super stud player. Like, they only have two guys with, like, actual, or three guys with X factors. But they don't have, like, that one guy that's, like, a stud player that's, like, a 90-plus overall. So that's kind of interesting. Their defensive core is also kind of a bit weird. You can see that most of these guys are probably listed as top 6 defensemen, which is kind of interesting. So their defensive core is not a huge threat, but they could probably definitely play good defensively because they do have a solid number 1 goalie in Matty Alto. He's their only gold X Factor player on this team, so it will be interesting to see if we're able to score on Alto. He has been a good career goaltender. He is 36 years old at this point, so he is dropping off. And they did win the Stanley Cup just last season, where he posted a .923. So hopefully we could score on him. And then if we look at the scratch, they only have one depth forward, which is Habscheid. So from a defensive standpoint, I'm not a huge fan of their defensive core, but they do have the goaltender that can back up that weak defense. And I am a big fan of how their offensive core is constructed because, like I said, they don't have one superstar player, but they have a good team effort. And that's what you kind of need when you get to the playoffs. You don't need one guy to do all the work. You need the entire team to evenly spread out the work, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to see if we're able to knock them out. We do not have home ice advantage. Let's get to game number 1 in Minnesota in what could be one of our last playoff runs of the series. Like I said, I think at the point this video goes up, obviously it's going to be September 11th, if I'm not mistaken. Next episode would be the 14th, and it would be the 18th, the 21st. Yeah, we pretty much only have, I think, after this episode, we might only have like 4 more episodes. So if we get to the Cup Finals, that would be a really good spot to end it and win the Stanley Cup, obviously. But if we obviously don't win the Stanley Cup, then we still have a couple more episodes that we could record of this. So we might have to do like one episode as the entire offseason after this. If we lose, one episode is, I guess, afterwards the regular season simulation. One is maybe just all the playoffs or a good chunk of the playoffs, maybe first 2 rounds. The other one might be the other 2 rounds, or the other one could be like a recap finale thing where we look at player stats and all that stuff. So we definitely have to think about how we want to wrap up this series. But anyways, let's get into this first round, because this could be Aidan Irving's last playoff run anyways, and that would be a pretty substantial loss if we end up losing him to retirement if we lose in this first round. So here we go. We are on the road. Let's be a good team in the playoffs as well, boys, and let's find our defensive identity and hopefully get some good offense going as well. First period. 2-0 us. That's a good start. That's a really good start. Like I said, Alto has been a really good playoff goaltender. Last year he had a .923. Winning them a Stanley Cup. I wouldn't be surprised if we beat them because they're defending Cup champions, but Bulbrook scores on the power play for us early on, so nice to see the power play getting a goal early into the game. And then Waters scores with 5 minutes left, so nice little 2-0 lead after the first period with the shots 13-10. Can we add some more insurance in the second period or pretty much just keep it the same? Second period? It is. Still 2-0. I'll definitely take that. It's much better than being all of a sudden 2-2, because sometimes when you're up 2-0 after 1, it's like a good response from the other team usually. So for us to still be up 2-2 is good, but obviously I would like some more insurance just to feel safe, because Minnesota does have that kind of balanced offensive approach that they could get back into this game. Shots are 23-19 in favor of us. It's still 2-0. Let's see if we could get some insurance and lock down game 1. Come on, boys. Let's lock her down. Just get one more goal and we should be safe. Power play for us. We do not score on that power play. That's okay. Good little waste of time off the clock. Penalty kill, and they get a goal right after the power play, I guess. Eddie makes it a 2-1 game. That's not ideal. Come on, boys. Just lock this one down. You got this. And we are going to lock it down by a score of 2-1. So our first 2 goals of the series were in the first period, and those were our only 2 goals in game 1. So not hugely impressed with the offensive effort, but I mean, we do win 2-1, so it's a nice little close game. Kalinin played great, made 29 saves, and we scored 2 goals on 32 shots. So we have Bulbrook from Ekholm and Marsh, and Waters from Backer and Bohms. Interesting. Two completely different lines. 3 stars of the game. Kalinin the first star. Alto for them. And then Eddie gets third star. I'm kind of surprised Eddie got third star in that one. Maybe it's just because he had a couple hits. But yeah, Alto was actually still really good for them. Even though they lost technically. He just had a bit of a rough first period. And then that ended up costing them the game. So we got to be wary about Alto being that good of a playoff goaltender. Because he could definitely turn the tides for his team if he keeps playing good. Because our offense dries up completely off a cliff. And Alto just plays good, that's going to be a major problem going forward. So, anyways, we're going to keep the team the same for Game 2, but I'm hoping that our offense could be a little bit better. Obviously, I hope that we keep the same defensive and goaltending approach in this game, but obviously anything could change in a second game. So, let's see what happens, see if we can take both games in Minnesota. Because if we could take both games in Minnesota, that'd be a great way to start off this first round. First period of game number 2. 2-2. Okay, so it is a good offensive start for us, but we also give up 2 goals, which is more than last game. Blunden scores on the power play, so once again, we open the scoring on a power play goal. Blunden scores literally 41 seconds later, so not too much afterwards. Then they took the lead less than a minute later on a Reed goal, so back-to-back goals really quickly for the Minnesota Wild. But then we answered back literally a minute after that from Ekholm, so those 3 goals were all in the span of like 2 minutes, pretty much, around 2.5 minutes. So that's pretty crazy. Shots are 14-9 in favor of us, but it's a 2-2 game. Can we have a better defensive second period, and can we keep our offense going? Because we've had good first period so far in the series, but obviously the second and third period we haven't scored a goal yet in the first game. Hopefully we could do so in game 2. Second period. Hey, there we go. 2 goals for us in the second period. It's a 4-3 goal game. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Big goal makes it 3-2. Martone ties the game up, but a late goal from Waters. So Waters has goals in back-to-back games. That one with 55 seconds left gives us the lead going into third. Shots are 24-19. So pretty even game. We are out shooting them, but we're only up by 1 goal. So we got to be careful here. Both goalies haven't had as strong of a game here in game 2 as they did in game 1. Can we find a way to get some insurance and to lock this one down? Come on, boys. Let's get that next one. Maybe Aidan Irving has a goal in him because he hasn't scored yet in the series. Bulbrook scores to make it 5-3. That's a huge one to give us a 2-goal advantage. Rather play with a 2-goal lead than a 1-goal lead. Penalty kill. It's a long penalty kill. I don't know who took that penalty, but we killed it off. Final 5 minutes, still up by a pair of goals. There's the insurance marker from Waters to make it 6-3. And your Winnipeg Jets are going to steal both games in Minnesota to start the first round. That's huge. That's huge. That's a really good offense, and defense is pretty solid in that one too. 3 goals against isn't terrible. Anything above 3 goals against is terrible though. Final shots were 36-26, so we scored 6 goals on 36 shots. They scored 3 on 26, so it definitely wasn't the best effort from Kalinin in this one, but our offense was good. So Blunden from Vandermeer and Ekholm from Bulbrook and Backer, Bickle from Kavosari, Waters from Kress and Bohms, Bulbrook from Bohms and Ekholm, and Waters with his third from Holmquist and Bohms. So Bohms had a 3-assist game, which is kind of weird considering he doesn't really do that type of thing in the regular season. But Ekholm, Bohms with multiple points. You also have Waters and Bulbrook on 2 points and a bunch of guys on 1 point. And you only had a couple of minus guys, but that's okay. And yeah, definitely wasn't the best effort from Kalinin, but it was a nice little 6-3 win. Ekholm gets first star, Waters the second star, and Bohms the third star. Nice to see guys that normally don't chip in on the offense that much help out though here early on. Like Bohms and Waters have been 2 of the best players on this team so far here in this first round. So our top line hasn't really had to do that much because we've been able to get offense from our other lines, and that's exactly what you kind of need. If your top line's not going to do anything, hopefully your second line can do something. If your second line can't do anything, hopefully your third line can. And obviously your fourth line isn't going to bring usually a lot of offense, but if it just brings good defense, then that's at least a positive. So it's always good to get a balanced offensive approach rather than just one line completely dominating. So we're outscoring them by a score of 8-4 after the first 2 games, so doubling them up, which is nice. Now we head to home ice, looking to take a 3-0 series lead. Obviously this could be the trend though, where the home team loses all their games up until Game 7, which means we'd lose in 7 games. I'm hoping that's not the case, but I have seen that happen before. I don't really like predicting those type of things, but I always seem to talk way too early, and that ends up happening. So let's see what happens in Game 3. We are now on home ice. Can we win at least one of these 2 games to give us a good shot at closing this series down. Here we go. Game 3. Let's keep it similar to not necessarily the last game in terms of defense, but let's get Game 1's defense and Game 2's offense if we can. First period, Game 3. 1-0 us. Good start. Good start defensively. Bickle again. So it is good that we've been able to score consistently in the first period, because obviously if you don't score early, it's hard to score later on. Shots are 13-10 in favor of us. And yeah, it's been a pretty even game so far up to this point after the first 20 minutes. This is usually where all the action happens, at least over the last few games. Actually, the last game, or was it the last game? Yeah, it was the last game. That was like that where we scored all of a sudden. Yeah, it was like, I think it was in the second period, or was that the first period? No, that's the first period, I think, that all 4 goals were in last game, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, can we get some insurance in the second period, and also hopefully get good goaltending as well? Second period. 4-1 us. Let's go. We have found ourselves. DePenta picks up 2 goals in that period. 1 on the regulation, 1 on the power play. And then Ekholm also scores in that period. Blum is the only goal scorer for the Wild. We're outshooting them 28-17. We're outplaying them badly in this one. And we are literally a period away from taking a 3-0 series lead, which would be fantastic, because then we'd knock out the defending Stanley Cup champions potentially. We could also still get reverse swept, which could happen, and if it does happen, I might have to end the series after this episode, but I don't think I would do that, because obviously we want to take a look at players' career stats and all that type of thing if we did lose still. But obviously I would probably be feeling a little bit mad if we were to get reverse swept if we do take a 3-0 series lead. But anyways, let's see what happens in this third period, see if we can lock this game down here. Penalty kill to start the third, we kill it off, and we get another goal from Waters. Why is Waters being so good in the playoffs here? Blunden scores on the power play. Our power play has been good so far still as well in this first round, so everything has been working well for this team up to this point. Alto is having his worst game, but he's also getting peppered in shots. Final few minutes, DePenta completes the hat-trick. I don't think I've had a defenseman get a hat-trick in a playoffs game in quite some time. I don't know if Vandemeer's ever had a hat-trick in the playoffs, but DePenta, with a huge effort, we win 7-1 in Game 3. Our offense has been killer the last 2 games. Obviously, it could dry up out of nowhere, but 7 goals on 42 shots. We only give up 1 on 26, so we've had some great defensive efforts in this series as well. Bickle from Blunden and Vandermeer, DePenta from Bickle and Blunden, DePenta from Kavusari, and Aidan Irving picking up an assist. Love to see it. Ekholm from Bulbrook and Marsh, Waters from Fawcett and Blunden, Blunden from DePenta and Kavusari, and DePenta from Kavusari and Backer. Let me take a look at those stat lines here. So yeah, DePenta had a 4-point night, 3 goals and an assist. What an effort from the defenseman. Blunden had 4 points as well, most of them being assists. Kavusari had 3 assists. Bickle had 2 points. And a bunch of guys on 1 point as well. We only had a total of 6 guys not on the score sheet in this one. And one of them was Bohms, who had a really good game the other game. So, really good effort from everybody. Kalinin played great too. That's exactly what I want to see from this team. So, DePenta first star, Blunden second star, and Kavusari the third star. Okay. So I am a little bit scared that we have a 3-0 series lead, just because I have seen reverse sweeps happen before, but we've been completely outplaying them now at this point in time, because we do have 13 goals in the last 2 games, only giving up 4 goals against. So our defense has been great, our offense has been great. If we could find a way to close this out, that would be fantastic. So got to keep the team, I think, the exact same for this game. Going into Game 4, obviously if we start to fall apart, we can make adjustments, but so far everything's been working out well. Let's keep the team the exact same into this last game, potentially, of this first round. So here we go. Game 4 on home ice. Can we pull off the sweep and knock out Minnesota? Defending Cup champions, too. First period of Game 4. 1-0 us. Another start that looks exactly the same as last game. Bickle opening and scoring again. That was only just under 2 minutes into the game, too. We are being outshot 12-7, so you knew they would have a little bit of a push, but they have not been able to score so far. Meanwhile, we have. So I think we know Alto's weakness at this point. Very good start again for this team. Hopefully, we keep this game relatively respectable in terms of defense. Hopefully, all of a sudden, it doesn't just get away from us in the second period. And hopefully, we can get some more insurance markers to feel us more safe going into the third. Let's see what happens in period number 2. 2-1, okay, it's still close. They did tie the game up pretty early into the second period, but Vandermeer, with I believe his first goal of the series, gives us a 2-1 lead. Shots are 23-16 in favor of Minnesota. We're up by 1 goal still. They're still outplaying us, but we're still getting good goaltending from Kalinin, which is great. Let's see what happens in period 3, see if we could get any insurance markers and lock down the series. And this game, DePenta scores again. He's got 4 goals in the last 2 games. And Marsh scores a short-handed goal, the franchise guy. Let's go. That's a huge 2 goals. That should be enough to lock down this series as Gostad makes it 4-2. They are still out shooting us, but we're still up by a couple goals, which is huge. There's a goal from Fawcett. His first career playoff goal makes it 5-2. Final few minutes. And your Winnipeg Jets are going to pull off the sweep as Lions scored to make it 5-3. But we are going to pull off the sweep and knock out the defending Cup champs. That's a huge first-round victory for our team. Hopefully we can take that confidence into round 2 as well. Most of those games were great defensively, and also we got good offense in our last 3 games as well. So Bickle from Kavusari and Blunden, Vandermeer from Bohms, DePenta from Kavusari and Blunden, Marsh from Fawcett and Gustafson, and then Fawcett from Kavusari and Blunden. Kavusari and Blunden also played fantastic these last 2 games. Blunden with another 3-point night. Same with Kavusari. Fawcett had 2 points. And then you had the youngster Gustafson with an assist and a couple other guys with 1.2. And then another solid effort from Kalinin. 3 stars of the game. Kavusari first star, Blunden second star, and Fawcett the 3rd star. Yeah, I think Kavusari, Blunden, and then also DePenta were probably the star players in that first round. We outscored them by a total of 20 to, let me see if I could do the math quickly, 20 to 8, if I'm not mistaken. So very good effort. 8 goals against in 4 games means we were only allowing an average of 2 goals against per game. And we scored 20 in 4 games, which means we are scoring 5 goals a game, which is really, really good. So first, before we take a look at our player stats, let's take a look at our team stats after the first round, see what was going good for us, because I am curious on what has been good for us after that first round. So yeah, we were scoring 5 goals a game. We were giving up 2 goals a game, as I was just mentioning. Our power play was 40% in that first round, which is very nice. And our penalty kill did not allow a single goal, so everything was working really well in that first round, which hopefully can continue that into round number 2. Let's take a look at our player stats now. So, in terms of player stats, Ekholm had 5 points. I mean, that's really solid too. Bickle had 4 points. He was actually really good in some of those games, opening and scoring and all that. Holmquist was kind of quiet, but he was a +3, so good defensive play at least from the young center. And then we had Vernarski, who is somehow a -1 on this team, which doesn't really make much sense, but he doesn't get a lot of ice time. He also had 2 fights, potentially, in the first 4 games of his playoff career, maybe. Yeah, he did have 2 fights. Jeez. Was this the first 4 games of his career, playoff career? I don't think so, right? No, he had some before, but still, having 2 fights already in that first round is kind of insane for Vernarski. Probably why he didn't get the play out there too much. Left wing side of things, Blunden was great. More assists than goals, which is kind of weird for him, but 8 points. Bohms had 5 points, obviously 3 of those assists game in 1 game. Marshall only had 3 points, but he obviously scored a short-hand goal in the last game, so hopefully he could get going a little bit more so in round 2. Harrison had no points, but he wasn't a negative player, so I don't mind that. Obviously, it would be nice for him to score some more points, though, going forward. Right wing side of things, Kawasari was great. 7 assists in 4 games, no goals, but he's a pure playmaker. He also does have leadership abilities, which is kind of interesting. I didn't realize he has born leader, so that's cool. We also have Bryson Waters, who was great. Another one of the underrated players on that first round. 4 goals in 4 games. Bulbrook had 4 points, and Aidan Irving only had the 1 assist, but once again, not a negative player, so not too bad from the captain. Defensively, DePenta was fantastic the last 2 games. 4 goals, 1 assist, 5 points. Definitely a really nice pickup. I'm glad we held on to him, and he is a pending free agent still in the offseason. I don't know if he'll come back next year, but I'm hoping that he does. Vandermeer was also pretty good. Fawcett was good. Backer was good. We actually got a lot of offense from this defensive core. And then Gustafson was fantastic defensively. Kress was probably our worst defenseman, just based on the fact he only had 1 assist and was an even 0. So, in general, really impressed with the defense too. And in our goaltending, a .930 save percentage from Kalinin. So, our goaltending, our defense, and our offense was all good in that first round. So, no problems. The only guy that was a minus was Vernarski, and like I said, he was in the box for 2 fights. And that might have played a little bit of a factor, because he would have missed some of the game because of it. All right, So there is that. The question is now, who are we playing in round number 2? Obviously, we just knocked out the defending Cup champions, which is nice. But who are we going to play in round 2? And is it a team we've played before? Is it a team we could beat? And hopefully we can find ourselves in the conference finals relatively soon. Because like I said, this series is getting very close to the end. So we want to know about that as soon as possible. So we are going to be taking on the St. Louis Blues. Oh no. That's where Roloff went after he got dealt from Boston. So we have another matchup with the St. Louis Blues. They have not won a Stanley Cup yet. They definitely are very close to one. They were a very good team in the regular season, 57-22-3. So I am very scared for this matchup, but if we could somehow beat them, we might be the best available left. Now, there is Calgary, who has some good players like Angelo Sanderson, if I remember right. Seattle, I don't know how good they are, but there is some good teams still in the West. East, you have Buffalo and Washington and Rangers and Carolina. If somehow Buffalo goes to a Cup Finals again and we go to a Cup Finals, that would be like the third time in a series that's happened. But obviously that's still far away at this point in time. So let's take a look at how St. Louis did in their first round. And we'll also take a look, obviously, at their roster and then their player stats as well for the first round, because I am curious on who's been driving their offense. I would assume it's that top line again that we had to contain last year. But in the first round, they won in 6 games. They were only scoring 2.33 goals per game. That's kind of uncharacteristic of that top line of theirs. They were giving up 2.5, so they actually allowed more than they scored, but they still won the series in 6 games nonetheless. So, yeah, that's a bit strange. Huh. I don't like that they gave up more goals than they scored, because I feel like they all of a sudden could just go completely 180 and just somehow beat us. So I am a little bit skeptical that they could be technically a cheese team that won the President's Trophy, but I honestly don't know. Their power play was also not very good in the first round. And their penalty kill is actually right as good as ours, 100%. And they had a shorthanded goal too. All right. The question is, what does their lineup look like compared to last year? Because last year I think we played them, was it in round 1 or was it round 2 as well? I don't really remember. But we just know that they have a really good forward group. And it's going to be probably pretty tough. So here is their lineup again, just in case you forgot, because it looks pretty similar to last year. First line, Isaac Rosehill, Peyton Eckford, Jeff Lashoff. This line looking for one maybe last run. 34 years old, 31 years old, and 32 years old. So very old top line, but look at the amount of studs they have compared to the last team we just faced in Minnesota. Second line, Isaiah Brindamore, who might be new to their roster. No, he's not. Did have a lot more ice time, I guess, this year, though. They also have Reese Crawford. Was he there last year? No, he was not. That's a big free agent pickup between the last 2 years from them. So he definitely could give them more depth in terms of their offense. And they also still have Gavin Weeks as a 29-year-old. He's more of an aggressive guy, though. 29 penalty minutes already in this first round. So he might be costing them quite a bit if they aren't going to get out of this next round. And the third line, they have Gonchar, Makinen, and Buzik. And a fourth line of Odell, Goldobin, and Griffith. This St. Louis Blues team last year went to the conference finals and lost to Minnesota, who we just beat. So I'm hoping that we could somehow have a little bit of a psychological edge. But this team is pretty filthy, especially those 4 X-Factor guys. And then Crawford's pretty good. Everybody else is pretty much just a filler player, but they could still chip in an offense now and again. Defensively, their defensive core is definitely on the decline a little bit. Jeffrey Keeping solid, but then they have Rick Finley, Clint Kavanaugh, Yuri Nikitin, Desmond Baldwin, and Quincy Paxpoo. Yeah, that defensive core is kind of interesting. I mean, Nikitin's not bad either. So they have some guys listed as top 4s. 3 guys listed as top 4s. And then Paxpoo, Kavanaugh, and Finley are all more top 6s / depth defenders. In terms of their goaltending, they probably have the same goalies last year. Yeah, I think this is the same guy. Alex Christensen. Is he the same? Yeah, he is. He's still been a very good regular season goalie. He was even better this season than he was last year. His playoff numbers, he's got a .927 so far. So we got to be able to beat a hot goaltender if we want to. He is worse overalls than Alto is, but still he simulates really good. And then Trevor Jaffrey is the backup. Is he a new backup? He is. He was in the AHL last year, okay. In terms of scratch, they do have an injury as well. So there's Antti Nurminen as a depth player. They have Timofey Ovechkin, who was on their defensive core as a top 4, so that definitely makes their defensive core better, but he might be missing some of this playoffs. And Damon Finley, that's actually a pretty good player to have scratched. I'm kind of surprised that they scratched this guy after 41 points in the regular season in 65 games nonetheless, and 9 points last year in their conference final run. But Ovechkin, hopefully he's not going to be back soon because he'd likely take Finley out of the lineup, or actually probably Paxbu for that matter. And then that defensive core would have top four defensemen, and it would be an actual defensive core. But yeah, obviously the main thing we need to do in the next round is contain their top six. And that's going to be very, very tough. I am curious on their player stats in that first round, though, because obviously they weren't very good offensively in the first round, but they still did good. But first, let's take a look and see if Ovechkin will return in round 2, or will we miss him? Let's see. Sprained ankle, he's back literally in 11 days, so he will be back on May 13th, which is equivalent to what game? Let's see. Yeah, he will be back this series, potentially, depends on how long it goes, I guess. But he will be back for a potential Game 7, if needed. He could come back earlier while he's injured still, but hopefully not. Final thing, let's take a look at what St. Louis's players did during that first round, and then I'll be it for this episode. So, in terms of their offense, they are mainly led by Victor Gonchar, of all people, so not even one of their top line players. He actually was just under point per game with 4 points in 6 games. Crawford had 3 goals. Brindamore had 3 points, so that's like that second line for the most part. Weeks had 3 points. Lashoff had 3 points. So they look like they got a lot of offense from like a lot of players. Like everybody on their forward group had a point, despite them not scoring a lot of goals per game, which is kind of interesting. And then from a defensive standpoint, Ovechkin had 4 points in 6 games before his injury. So he is a substantial blow to their team a little bit, because if they lost him for the most of that, or for this entire series, that could impact them a lot. So we won't have to worry about him until Game 7 or Game 6. And that might be a very helpful thing for our team, because I guess he was playing alongside Keeping in that first round, because every other defenseman was very badly plus-minus. So we might have an upper hand, but at the same time, the game could just throw a complete curveball at us, because Christensen was probably their best player in that first round, and that's why they ended up winning in that first round matchup that they had. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Winnipeg Jets franchise mode. So in next episode, we'll take it to round number 2 against a very tough St. Louis Blues team that had a little bit of an underwhelming first round. And we'll see if we're able to get ourselves to the conference finals, because like I said, this series is very much close to the end. So we want to try and get that one Stanley Cup left if we possibly can. So I think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.